Support for Amanpour comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, who are excited to introduce their all-new Rate Shield approval. If you're in the market to buy a home, Rate Shield approval is a real game changer, and here's why. First, Quicken Loans will lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. But here's the crucial part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Amanpour.
Coming up, Western allies shudder. Yet another summit, yet another Trump tweet storm of criticism as he flies out to meet NATO partners. From Brussels, the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Kay Bailey Hutchison, tells me it is just a Trump strategy to strengthen NATO. Do the allies see it that way? Also from Brussels, we'll ask the German defense minister, Ursula von der Leyen. Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Christiane Amanpour in London. Donald Trump arrives in Europe today for what could be a tense meeting with NATO. As a parting shot, he fired off this tweet about the NATO allies' military spending. Quote, NATO countries must pay more, the United States must pay less, very unfair. Now, this purely transactional approach to the 70-year-old defense alliance is nothing new for President Trump. But here are some facts. Last year, NATO allies boosted their defense budget by a combined 5.2%. The combined defense budget of NATO nations has grown by $14.4 billion since he took office. 16 nations are on track to spend the targeted 2% of their gross domestic product by the agreed 2024. So why is President Trump still complaining so often and so loudly? Here to discuss is Kay Bailey Hutchison, America's ambassador to NATO and a former U.S. senator from Texas. Ambassador Kay Bailey Hutchison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Christiane. It's great to be with you.
Well, you have seen a lot of U.S. politics, U.S. diplomacy. You've spent your whole life in this role, really. What do you make of President Trump? Is he coming again with fisticuffs to aim at his allies?
You know, I think he's coming to be plain-spoken, as he always has been. But I think now that the alliance is understanding better what he's trying to do, which is strengthen the alliance by assuring that everyone is contributing in burden sharing, but also strengthening our new NATO command structure, making sure that we are doing counterterrorism, which is something that most of our countries have experienced, unfortunately, and he wanted to be a priority. So I think we are strengthening the alliance, and I think that is the message that he will bring.
So I wonder then how you respond to the European Commission president. This is Donald Tusk's message to President Trump today. First of all, dear America, appreciate your allies. After all, you don't have that many. And dear Europe, spend more on your defense because everyone respects an ally that's well prepared and equipped. Obviously, the second part you're going to like and the president's going to like, but he's pretty much punching back because President Trump has treated these allies as mere transactional cogs in a wheel.
Well, I think that President Trump actually has very great respect for our allies. He does think that there should be more because it is a European alliance along with North America. I think he's been plain about that. But, Christiane, I think that his goal is to make sure that NATO is the strongest umbrella for security for all of us. And I think that our allies realize that. And I know that the way he says things sometimes put people off, but he's just trying to make the point and make sure that they actually do it. Now, Christiane, you know, I served with other presidents and they all said the same thing. I think President Trump is saying it in a way that they are now remembering and really turning on the dime and doing better.
Mm-hmm. Look, I understand, and many U.S. presidents and leaders have complained, and they want that 2%. Obviously, the Europeans do things that complement U.S. participation in the U.S. contribution. But here's the thing. The tone is what is creating existential angst amongst your NATO allies. Donald Tusk, again, basically has said that the tone of President Trump, his language meant that allies could no longer assume that NATO will endure. Now, that might sound alarmist, but I'm going to play you, again, a much hackneyed soundbite. President Trump's initial first ever comments in public on NATO were not heartening to those who believe in the alliance. Listen to this for a second.
NATO is obsolete. It was 67 years, or it's over 60 years old. It is many countries, doesn't cover terrorism, okay? It covers the Soviet Union, which is no longer in existence. And NATO has to either be rejiggered, changed for the better. I'm not saying the other thing that's bad about NATO, we're paying too much. We're spending a tremendous billions and billions of dollars on NATO.
So there are a lot of thoughts in that statement, but you can see that that those initial comments are still the comments of the president, and it does destabilize the allies. They're kind of concerned about it because, you know, you talk about the Wales summit, and indeed in 2014 there was a pledge to up the payments. Every single one, except a couple, have upped their payments to nearly 2%.
Actually, every ally is going in the right direction. 100% are spending more. And I think President Trump, emphasizing it in the way that he has, is making the allies realize that they really must do more for the strength of the alliance as a whole. And I thought Chancellor Merkel said it very well to her Bundestag, that they do need to spend more. They need to step up. And I think she is leading the way toward doing that. And I think much of that is because President Trump has just said finally that Germany has the capability. They're the strongest economy in the EU, and they can do more. And I think she has accepted that. And I think people are now going in the right direction. And I think it is for the strength of the alliance as a whole.
And again, not to keep putting you on the back foot, but they have been doing that since 2014. And you sort of portray it as the allies will realize that they need to do more. But will President Trump realize that the allies are doing a lot?
We are a deterrence alliance, and being strong is our best deterrence. That's why I think it's so important that we show that strength, we show that unity, so that maybe Russia will not consider doing any more probing to look for weak spots in NATO. Russia is now looking for the weak spots that would divide this alliance. He wants to break it down. That's why we have to stand strong as a major deterrence.
You know, Senator, Ambassador, I don't think a single NATO ally would disagree with what you just said, which is why they're concerned, because they know that Vladimir Putin is looking for any chink in the Western alliance and any chink in your armor. And they see President Trump driving those chinks between the United States and the rest of the Western alliance. I mean, he comes fresh off doing that at the G7 summit in Canada. And they're concerned that he's next going to see President Putin right after the NATO alliance. And all this discord is music to President Putin's ears.
Well, I think the discord is music to Putin's ears, but I do think that coming from this summit, which is allied, is strong, and is going to increase our deterrent capabilities, that is going to put President Trump in a very strong position with President Putin. And I think he will be tough with President Putin. You know, Russia is violating the INF Treaty. That's ballistic missiles that could reach anywhere in Europe. That is very troubling, and I think President Trump will bring that up. Putin has got to change his behavior, and I think President Trump is ready to tell him that we must see a different Russia if we are going to have any kind of relationship that will work. And everyone, including NATO, talks to Russia. We have the Russian ambassador here that we have meetings with periodically to say, you've got to straighten out. Hopefully, President Trump, who can give that message very strongly, to President Putin, and I think he is one of the people who has the capability to do that.
And you're absolutely right. He does. He can. He's the president of the United States. And you just said, hopefully. The reason we ask these questions is because we're kind of confused. I mean, he made a tweet again today, or actually he spoke, saying that I'm going to NATO, I'm going to the UK, there's turmoil there. Frankly, I think my meetings with Putin will be the easiest. And people are wondering how to parse that statement. And then when he says, that he kind of believes Putin when he says that he didn't interfere in the US election and other elections around Europe, people are concerned and worried about why it is he hasn't been giving those stiff démarches to the Russians, to President Putin, whenever he could.
Well, I think that he has a strategy. It's Kim Jong-un. It is trying to deal with Iran from a position of strength. And I think he is going to be able to do that with Putin as well, because I think Putin respects President Trump as a tough opponent. I think President Trump said today he is a competitor. Putin is a competitor. Well, that's for sure. I mean, look at the things that he is doing that are destabilizing many of the countries in our alliance, with hybrid warfare, with cyber attacks. It's something that we have to approach from strength, and I think that's what President Trump is trying to do.
Well, on a personal note then, Angela Merkel is generally viewed around Europe, around the Western alliance, as a strong, dependable leader. For whatever reason, President Trump has decided that he can tweet freely against her, he can say things against her, and again, people take it as beating up on Angela Merkel. And he says that he claims he said to her, I don't know how much protection we get by protecting you. Do you think the American investment, Ambassador, in defending Europe, in underpinning the NATO alliance is worth the expense?
Absolutely. We are so much stronger because we are together. And I think if Germany steps up to the plate, which I believe they are in the process of doing, and I would say that it's under Chancellor Merkel's leadership. She's been encouraging her own Bundestag to step up more. And she has a wonderful Minister of Defense, Ursula von der Leyen. And Ursula von der Leyen is a strong Minister of Defense, and she really is pushing Germany to make the investments that will make it more capable in equipment and training and being even a stronger ally.
So I'm actually going to be interviewing the defense minister right after your interview. So I might ask you then, because she's obviously a very close ally of Chancellor Merkel, who's been going through her own political challenges recently with, her coalition trying to backstab her. What do you make of your own U.S. ambassador to Germany publicly stating that his mission is to support opponents of Angela Merkel and other such people around Europe?
Christiane, I'm not going to look behind what another ambassador has said. I'm at NATO. I am working for the strength of our alliance. Germany is a major part of that. Ursula von der Leyen, who you are going to be talking to, is very much a leader in that respect. I think that she, along with the leadership of Chancellor Merkel, have gone directly to their Bundestag and said, we have to do more. And I think the fact that we have so many troops in Germany, and that is also in our interest as well as Germany and NATO's interests, all of that together is part of this very strong alliance and commitment.
Ambassador Kay Bailey Hutchison, thank you so much for joining us from NATO headquarters.
Okay, thank you. It's great to be with you.
Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple, fast, and smart. A place where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. That place is ZipRecruiter.com/Amanpour. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards. But they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invite them to apply to your job. As applications come in, they analyze each one and spotlight the top candidates, so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. With results like that, it's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the highest-rated hiring site in America. And right now, listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/Amanpour. That's ZipRecruiter.com/AMANPOUR. ZipRecruiter.com/Amanpour. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Support for Amanpour comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Amanpour. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030. Been putting off buying new glasses? Zenni Optical offers a huge variety of high-quality, stylish frames and state-of-the-art optics, starting at just $6.95. We've got all the great frame styles you want in materials like titanium, carbon fiber, and high-luster acetate. Plus, Zenni offers prescription glasses and sunglasses. So at this great price, you can build your eyewear wardrobe. You can get 10% off your entire order with code 360. So visit Zenni, Zenni, today at zennioptical.com and use code 360.
We are turning now to the German perspective. And as we've been discussing, for some reason, the president singles out that country and its leader for particular scorn, whether it's about trade, tariffs, or meeting NATO's defense spending requirements. Listen to this.
We have some that don't, and well, they'll be dealt with. In particular, Germany must demonstrate leadership in the alliance by addressing its long-standing shortfall in defense contributions. Germany has not contributed what it should be contributing, and it's a very big beneficiary, far bigger than the United States, frankly.
So, as I mentioned to the ambassador, Hutchison, Ursula von der Leyen, the German defense minister, is my next guest. She also is the deputy leader of Merkel's ruling party, and she is the chancellor's close ally. Indeed, she's the only minister to have served in her cabinet since she came to power back in 2005. And Ursula von der Leyen joins me now from Brussels. Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Christiane. Good evening.
Well, there is so much to answer there, but I do first want to ask you the elephant in the room question. Why, as the strongest economy in Europe, do you not spend your 2% of GDP on your military in Germany? Why not?
Well, you have to look at where we came from. We had a long period since reunification of cutting budget. 25 long years, the budget of defense was lowered because Germany, as many other European countries, thought that around us peace is growing, democracies are growing around us. And then came the year 2014 when Russia enacted the Crimea and started the hybrid war in the Ukraine. And 3 months later, we had ISIL in Iraq and Syria. That was the turning point when the alliance decided with President Obama that we should aim to spend 2% of the GDP on defense. At that time, Germany was down to 1.1%. This was painful. We made a turnaround. Since then, if I look at the budget for the next year, we just passed through the cabinet. We have raised the defense in real terms by 30%. And the figures now we're projecting for 2024, a decade after Wales, will be in real terms an increase of 80%. I think we are on the right way.
Okay, 30%, 80% still doesn't amount to the 2% of GDP on your military spending. So the president will continue to criticize you for that. I guess, my question is, what do you make of Ambassador Kay Bailey Hutchison's description of President Trump's loud complaints as a strategy to get you all together and to make NATO stronger by having its militaries stronger?
We know as an alliance that we have to modernize. This was clear in the year 2014 because the security environment totally changed, and we are committed to the 2% goal. But it's not only about 2% of the GDP spending for defense, because this number doesn't say anything about who is contributing what to the alliance, doesn't say anything about capabilities, because you can spend 2% of your defense budget on your defense budget nationally without contributing anything to NATO, for example. Therefore, I think, and we agreed on that in the alliance, it's worth to look at two other metrics that are capabilities given to NATO and contributions to NATO missions. And I think convincing is that Germany is the second largest troop contributor to NATO missions overall. We're just talking about the NATO command structure. Germany is leading the Joint Support and Enabling Command, the new one now. In Ulm, we are the second largest net payer to NATO. So these are numbers that show that NATO is benefiting from the German contribution as we all try to contribute as good as possible to NATO.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. I also put it to Ambassador Kay Bailey Hutchison. This is a soundbite from President Trump just this past few days at a rally in Montana. He specifically, again, talks about your Chancellor Angela Merkel.
And I said, Angela, I can't guarantee it, but we're protecting you, and it means a lot more to you than protecting us, because I don't know how much protection we get by protecting you. And then they go out and they make a gas deal, oil and gas from Russia, where they pay billions and billions of dollars to Russia. Okay? So they want to protect against Russia, yet they pay billions of dollars to Russia, and we're the schmucks that are paying for the whole thing.
Okay, so let me take the first bit first. President Trump saying, I don't know what we, the United States, get out of essentially protecting you, Germany, you, Europe. Could you answer that first? What's in it for the U.S.?
Of course, yes. There are 2 points. The first one, once in our common history of NATO, almost 70 years of NATO now, Article 5, collective defense, has been triggered. And that was with this horrible terrorist attack at 9/11. We all stood side by side with our American friends in Afghanistan fighting the terrorists, and we're still there. So this example shows that this wonderful promise within the alliance, when one of us is being attacked, we'll all stand together and defend him, is worth existing in Afghanistan. And the second point is, and this is more important to me, we're not only a military alliance. We are an alliance that is defending common values. And if you look at the United States, Canada, Europe, our British friends, all the members of the alliance, we're standing for the rule of law, for democracy, for human rights. And this is what unifies us. This is the important value to defend. And therefore, NATO is way more than just 2% in defense budget.
And on the other aspect, where the president talks about the billions of dollars that are being spent on this pipeline from Russia, and basically saying, you pay billions of dollars to Russia, and, will you be able to then stand up to Russia, for instance, if you're dependent on Russian energy? And aren't you having your cake and eating it too, if you can afford those billions for that pipeline and not putting it into NATO?
No. First of all, this is a pipeline. This economic project started, I think, back in 2002 or 2003 So way before Russia changed its behavior in 2014. So it is a business project that has been started, and it's hard to stop such a business project if it complies and sticks to all the requirements that it has to fulfill. For example, in environmental issues, just to name some. So it is not easy to stop that. But on the other hand, we have a very diverse mix of energy supply. So the president hasn't to be worried that there's any kind of dependency. On the contrary, if there is one person who has been dealing all the time with President Putin very hard on the issues of the Ukraine and the hybrid war in the Ukraine, it was Chancellor Merkel. She was the one, together with the French president, who brought the Ukrainian president and President Putin to agree to the Minsk agreement, which is a crucial one to keep the situation in the Ukraine under control. So we've, I think, shown that this balance of showing strength on one hand, on one side to Russia, and on the other hand, always reminding Russia that we have to solve our problems at the negotiation table, that this is better. We've proven that we're able to do that in the right balance.
Okay.
And I think this is something worth to look at.
What do you hope President Trump says to President Putin then when he meets him a day or two after the NATO summit?
Well, I hope he'll come from the NATO summit where we have sent a clear message of unity and resolve, and that he will make clear that we'll never accept the annexation of Crimea. This is a violation of international law, and that we see what is going on in the Ukraine, for example, and that there is a possibility to sit down and solve these problems if there is the willingness on the other side really to work for peace. And so there are many topics to debate, but the most important one is to come from the summit with the strong message of resolve and unity.
And finally, you are a close ally of the Chancellor. You're deputy leader of her party. How is she taking this constant being a target of the wrath, the anger, the tweets of the President of the United States?
She's taken it, as you know her, very calm, because she's aware, as all of us, there are enormously serious issues around us. This world is in a difficult stage, and there are huge topics we have to deal with. I was talking about Russia, but just think about ISIL and terror. Think about migration movements in Africa, fragile countries, governments in Africa, just to name some. Climate change, poverty, inequality. So many, many topics we have to deal with as democracies. And therefore, if you just think about these topics, well, you have the ability to be calm when you listen to the tweets.
All right. German Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen, thank you very much for joining us from Brussels tonight.
Thank you, Christian.
And we end our program in a truly wonderful way because we're celebrating good news along with, of course, the whole rest of the watching world. In Thailand, all 12 boys belonging to the wild boar football team and their coach have been pulled from caves as far as 2 miles deep inside the mountain. They'd been stranded there for more than 2 weeks by monsoons. And as they ran low on oxygen and food, fears grew that they may not make it out alive as forecasts called for even more heavy rains. And one Thai Navy SEAL died trying to get oxygen to the boys. Now, volunteer cave divers from all over the world came to help the Thai experts. Many of their bosses back home gave all these volunteers the time off for the daring rescue attempt. Many of the boys didn't even know how to swim. But the teams took a 9-hour round trip to escort the boys to the mouth of the cave. The rescuers tethered them to themselves. They swam through swift currents, through muddy water, and very, very tight turns. By some miracle today, All, as I said, 12 boys and their coach and the rescuers were finally out. A stunning, nail-biting triumph of superhuman ingenuity, tenacity, and faith against all odds. That is it for our program. Remember, you can always listen to our podcast and see us online at amanpour.com, and you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from London.